we can trace some evidence of how he arrived at the composition that expressed his vision.
Here we are looking at a group of embracing couples, which could be the couple from The Kiss. None of the drawings are dated. Now we have in front of us quite clearly the couple, Paolo and Francesca, and you can see that it is very similar to the couple in The Kiss.
Rodin translated his sketches into 3 dimensions. Early versions show the speed at which he worked.
He's a master of masterpiece in 1 minute. After starting called Processo, speed of execution. The speed of the gesture, keep the gesture fresh, keep the impulse in the play alive.
What I need always to have models in front of him. He could not do anything without living models and the presence of nature.
But it was not then the normal practice for men and women models to pose together in the nude. So what did Rodin do? Perhaps oddly, it was acceptable practice to bring 2 naked women together, and some of the kissing studies indicate that this was one of the ways he developed the pose he was seeking. But to achieve the right contrast of intertwining physiques, he had to have a male-female couple. It was a very bold move, but Rodin was never reluctant to defy convention.
It has to have been modelled by 2 real people in Rodin's studio, trying out a pose that Rodin himself had probably experimented with. It was probably the culmination of a whole raft of alternatives that he put them through.
How he found the pose for the kiss may never be known. What's certain is that once the desired pose was settled on, Rodin worked out a much larger version using a method he described himself.
I place the model so that the background light outlines the profile. I do it, I change my stand and the model stand, and thus I see another profile. Since the human body has the possibility for infinite profiles, I do as many as I can, or as many as I find useful.
This is probably the very first version of the kiss, the original from which all other kisses derive. It's subtly different from the later versions we're more familiar with. The lips do not touch, and Paolo's hand is not placed on Francesca's thigh. Probably because the terracotta had to be baked, which can cause shrinking. Around this time, Rodin had been with his partner Rose for almost 20 years. Then a new woman came into his life. Camille Claudel was a sculptress who worked in Rodin's studio. She was 24 years his junior. It's easy to believe that the kiss expresses his passion for her.
Rodin loved her very deeply. 5 letters from Rodin to Camille. They're fantastic love letters. They're wonderful love letters. They're somebody just everything that's in them. Who really says, I can't live without you in so many different and complicated ways.
The kiss shows the tentative beginnings of Rodin's extraordinary sexual journey, of which Camille was a part.
Camille Claudel was a very possessive, demanding, bossy person. So that was the dominant force in Rodin's life in the 1880s. And when he redoes so many kisses, so many embraces, so many couples entwined, we feel the presence of Camille Claudel.
They entered into a kind of dialogue in sculpture, demonstrating their passion for one another.
they were together for over 10 years, but by this time she was asking Rodin to make a simple choice to marry her the rose. And faced with living with a difficult, high-strung woman, or having a housekeeper companion, and the possibility of concentrating on his work, Rodin chose the latter.
For Camille, the breakup developed into a living hell. She became mentally unstable and destroyed much of her own work. Her family committed her to an institution where she spent the last 30 years of her life. For almost a century, it was generally believed that the kiss was an image either of her, for her, or about her, because it was dated to 1887, well into her relationship with Rodin. Now we know his first version was created much earlier.
It would be convenient to think that the kiss is a portrait of their love, but actually the kiss was begun 2 years before he met Camille.
So if Camille was not even the inspiration for the kiss, who was? At the time of working on the kiss, Rodin was using the services of an Italian family. Rodin had a passion for Anna and Adele at Processo.
They were sisters, each perfect in their way, but utterly opposite in personality. One was superb in her savage energy. The other had that sovereign beauty which all the poets have described.
Adele is the most likely candidate for the kiss. She and Rodin may at some point have been lovers. Certainly she's a presence all over the gates of hell, where the kiss was supposed to hold a key position. We know Adele modelled for an extraordinary work that prefigured the kiss, a work whose animal alertness makes the kiss couple look comparatively stable.
Rodin became so intimate and so kind of natural and relaxed in a way with his models that he got them to take poses that no other artist had ever even imagined, much less recorded.
Like the kiss, the crouching woman is also about the awakening of female sexual desire.
To get a model to take that position with her whole body exposed from every side, and yet to seem to still be listening to herself and feeling her own erotic urges. That translates to a kiss, because it's also a very private work. You have to circle around, and something is always concealed from you.
Rodin enjoyed and recommended intense working relationships with his models.
A model may suggest or awaken and bring to conclusion by a moment or position, a composition that lies dormant in the mind of the artist. They work together as a productive force.
It's difficult to imagine a male model collaborating in the same way, especially if you see Paolo as a stand-in for Rodin himself.
I think in a way, he wants to be that man. He's projecting himself into the position that man occupies, relishing the embrace of this highly desirable woman.
Ultimately, what is important is the song of love and his passion for women.
Rodin was completely unabashed about his passion.
People say I think too much about women, yet what is there more important to think about?
By the mid-1880s in France, when the kissing Paolo and Francesca were firmly established within the gates of hell, Rodin's dark obsession with sex and death was coming into harmony with the fashionable preoccupations of the moment.
You can get some idea of the character of the times if you look at the fact that a contemporary of Rodin's, Priestman, wrote that only the chaste are truly obscene.
Out of the new French delight in decadence and amorality, grew one key stereotype that still persists today: the femme fatale.
This almost obsession with the idea of the fatal woman may have something to do in the late 19th century with the near pandemic of syphilis, which was taking place at that time. And woman was very literally associated with death.
Fellow artist Félicien Rops, a great admirer of Rodin, created images of women that made the connection explicit.
Rops produced one extraordinary etching called Mors Syphilitica, syphilitic death in Latin. It's a prostitute leaning against a doorway on a Paris street, but she's a corpse. She's a cadaver, she's a living corpse.
By now, Rodin may well have thought the kiss depiction of the doomed couple in the Gates of Hell too tame. He'd already progressed towards more extreme interpretations of Paolo and Francesca's plight.
The ecstatic art of levitation of the Gates of Hell do not work well with the sense of gravity of the kiss.
Most of the figures on the Gates of Hell, they're writhing, they're plummeting, they're agonized, they're caught up in this whirlwind, almost like a maelstrom of disastrous, catastrophic emotion.
So the kiss was freed from the inferno, leaving Paolo and Francesca homeless. The sculpture could have been lost forever, but Rodin was not one to waste an idea. At a Brussels exhibition in 1887, he tried out a plaster version. So began the story of the kiss as an exhibition piece. But it was an inauspicious start. The couple that Rodin had named Francesca de Rimini received a pasting from the critics.
What? Make them naked? It's dreadful. They must have shown them costumes all the time. None of the details of their tragic adventure, so minutely described by Dante, are shown by Rodin.
They're naked because Rodin is working within the classical tradition. And in the classical tradition, the human body is always naked. So it's something that, everybody can look at without feeling embarrassed. It delicately stays on the right side of pornography, as it were.
A Belgian critic writing for La Nation was more generous, and history repaid him for describing the work.
An adorable group of stark naked lovers, which would have been simple enough to call the kiss.
Unwittingly provided the work with its passport to international fame. Rodin welcomed the idea, and from then on, the name stuck.
If it was called something like Paolo and Francesca, or even The Doomed Lovers, it wouldn't have the same charge.
In French, le baiser means the kiss, but the verb baiser means to fuck. If you ask someone to kiss you in French, you don't say baise-moi, because that would mean fuck me. What you do say is embrasse-moi. And embrasser is the polite French word for kissing.
A decade later, Thomas Edison recalled outrage with the first movie kiss. In the mid-80s, Rodin's sculpture, with its coded titillation, had the field to itself, Paris.
The state recognized it as something that they wanted to buy for the Musée de Luxembourg, which was the Museum of Modern Art. It made a big hit, a big impression.
In an extraordinary gesture,